love for the child to be the most purest form of love that you could probably compare what Krishna has for each one of us and what we need to develop for Krishna. You see? So here also we can see from our own examples that we are performing austerities. We are doing our service under difficult things. We have to have that same mood when we are doing service for Krishna also. Okay. Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering unto me. So even our austerities are meant to be offered as seva. Correct? It's the point is that our austerities are not being performed for any other purpose except for pleasing Krishna, because sometimes austerities are performed in other moods also, and we will come to that. Now, Prabhupada has given us some basic austerities, right? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are some practices of devotion which are mentioned. They are mentioned in other scriptures also, where we talk about sadhu sangha, nam kirtan, reading the scriptures, doing deity worship, seva. All of these require austerity because it requires us to perhaps get up early, chant attentively, tolerate sometimes hunger, fatigue, tolerate demands of the mind. Controlling the mind perhaps is one of the greatest austerity that one can perform, right? But the moment you dovetail all of these to service, they don't remain difficulties anymore, they become nectar. So, what we'll do today is let's look at some examples. Yeah, if you could. Let's look at some examples from Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? So, here we are talking about Haridas Thakur. And this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila, chapter 3, because there are so many verses that speak about him. I have not given you the reference of the verses because there are so many. Now, how many of you know Haridas? How many of you who know Haridas Thakur? Okay, quite a few. And there are a few who don't know. So well, let's just imagine that we are meeting Haridas Thakur for the first time. Okay. So Haridas Thakur, of course, is a great associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was born in the family of Muslims. However, he was so attracted to the holy name that he took a promise that he would chant 300,000 holy names every single day. Some of us who are chanting 16 rounds, sometimes we think, oh, when will I finish my 16 rounds? Correct? Some of us, we do that, no? Here, Haridas Thakur says, he's taken this vow. So it takes him almost 22 hours a day, he's only chanting. 22 hours a day, he's just chanting. Because he was born in a Muslim family, he was so humble that he would not even enter the temple, especially when he was in Jagannath Puri. He wouldn't enter the temple because he thought that his presence will not be right for the pandas who are serving the deities over there, right? He didn't have any kind of desire for any attention or recognition, nothing of that sort. But the main thing what we want to discuss here today is uh, because he was a Muslim, and in those days there were Muslim rulers in many parts of India, and so he was asked to stop chanting the holy name of the Lord. And he was said, why are you chanting Hare Krishna? You're a Muslim, you should not chant Hare Krishna. And Haridas Thakur said, no matter what you do to me, even if you chop pieces of my body, each part of my body will still be chanting the Lord's name, like that. And he was beaten in 22 marketplaces, right? Constantly beaten. He was one place and he was, beaten and thrown in the river also, and but not even all that hurt, not for once was able to shake his determination. What happens with us? Little bit of inconvenience that we have. I'm doing service with somebody, I don't get along with this devotee, I'm going to just stop the service. I'm not going to take any inconvenience, right? Little bit of inconvenience. All of us are, we are conditioned. We are conditioned. There's nothing wrong with feeling like that, because it's better to accept what our shortcomings are, then we can work on, doing something with it, right? I remember when my children were young, the first thing I used to always tell them and teach them is, till you don't accept what your mistake is, you will not be able to work on it. So it is very important that you accept your mistakes, or you accept what your shortcomings are. We all of us, we want to do service. It's not like we don't want to do service, but a little bit of inconvenience comes in the way and we feel, no, this is not for me. I'll go and look for something else, and I'll look for something else, and I'll look for something else, and so you keep just moving. And here we have the example of Haridas Thakur, that you know uh, he he was not avoiding any difficulty. So the lesson that we learn from his life is, true austerity is not to avoid difficulty, but to continue the service despite the difficulty. Right? So that is true austerity. So that is lesson number 1 for today from Haridas Thakur's life. Okay. Then let's move on and let's see another character. Now this is Govinda and Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sleeping, and that is Govinda actually crossing over the body of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, I'm sure many of you coming from a Hindu background may have heard your parents saying, don't cross over anybody's body. Do you know why? Why do we say that? So why we don't cross over a living body? Any? Did you ever question your parents? Why did they say that?
They told like they will stay short.
Yeah, I remember that. Parents, huh? So parents would actually say, what you're saying is true. Parents would say, if you cross over, ye badhega nahi, he'll stay the same height. He'll stay the same height. And God Purnima is saying shorter lifespan. Lifespan short ho jata hai when you do that. The thing is that in every living entity, God is present. Krishna is present. So how can you cross over, when the Lord is present in the body? So that's the main thing. Now here, what happened was Govinda was serving Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu was resting. Govinda was, massaging his feet. And while he was massaging his feet, Mahaprabhu fell asleep, right? But Govinda had to go and prepare bhoga, prasad, and get everything ready for Mahaprabhu. So what he did, he crossed over. He crossed over so that he could perform his service. However, after he's done his service, he again needs to come back, but he would not cross over again. So the point that is being made is, he took that decision of crossing once the body because his service required it. Right? So seva means sacrifice, even in paradox, meaning that even if sometimes there are times when you think that according to society or according to rules, it may not be the right thing to do. Let's take the example of Arjuna. On the battlefield, Arjuna said to Krishna, I cannot fight because how can I kill people? Right? They are my brothers, they are my uncles, they are my relatives. But when Krishna obviously then spoke the Gita, and the point that was made eventually was that, Arjuna, you are doing this for me. So when you have to do something for the Lord, then you don't worry about the other, these material or society norms and rules and regulations. And if you have to sacrifice something for that, you do it like how Govinda was sacrificing, right? He sacrificed, he stayed hungry. He stayed hungry the entire day till Mahaprabhu woke up, because he wouldn't cross over again his body. Okay. So lesson from here means that a servant's priority is always the master's pleasure, not personal comfort. So we have to always think of what will please my master. My master is Krishna. My master is my guru. My master is Srila Prabhupada. What will please them? And if I have to be uncomfortable for that, so be it. Okay, so that's the lesson we learn. Yeah. Now, this is another story of a wonderful associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this is Raghunath Das Goswami. Again, some of you may have heard about him, some of you may not have heard about him. There's many stories about Raghunath Das Goswami. In fact, he's one of the, how would I say, I can't say my favorite Goswami, but actually he is in one sense. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he came from a very, very rich family. You know, his parents, his father, his uncle, they were very rich landlords. But his only desire was to somehow or the other be in the association of Mahaprabhu and serve him. That's all that he wanted. And eventually he managed to literally run away from home because his parents did not want him to go, and he managed to run away from home and he started serving Mahaprabhu. But even then, there were some times when, perhaps people around him would think that he's still getting support from his parents because they are so well off, because they are so rich. Eventually, Raghunath Das Goswami came to this understanding that I need to renounce even more. And he started surviving only on the grains that was thrown out, not even the good fresh grains. In Jagannath Puri temple, whatever leftover or whatever grains were thrown out, which are not considered good enough to be offered to the Lord, that is the grains that Raghunath Das Goswami was surviving on. He was eating just that. Correct? He was eating rejected food, but because he was so much in the mood of service, it's this grains that he was eating just purified his heart more and more, and it deepened his love for the holy name. So when the seva is your goal, then all the austerities that you're performing also becomes really sweet and pleasurable. Raghunath Das Goswami was not experiencing any issues or any problems because his goal was seva. How he can serve Mahaprabhu, how he can serve the Lord, right? So lesson for all of us is we're all used to perhaps some amount of luxuries in our lives. It could be anything. For me, what is luxury could be, austerity for you. So everybody has to choose or decide. So maybe, it could be a lesson that what is that luxury which I can give up if it will help me to develop the mood of seva for the Lord. So this is something that each one of you should reflect. What is the luxury that I can give up for developing the mood for seva, right? And then we'll take one last example from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then we'll move on to Prabhupada's examples. Yeah, please. Yeah. So this is a story of Shivananda Sen. Yeah, Shivananda Sen. Uh, he had so much compassion for everybody, and when we say everybody, it means for every living entity. So Shivananda Sen's service was that he would take devotees from Bengal to Jagannath Puri every year, right? So he would arrange for their travel, their food on the way, where they would stay, their comfort, everything Shivananda Sen looked after, right? And please remember, in those days we didn't have aircrafts that you just buy a ticket, get on the aircraft, and there you've reached. It was quite an arduous task to reach from one place to another because you had to walk, or you had some means of transport like perhaps boats to cross the river and things like that. Now, one time in that group of devotees, there was a dog, right? And the dog accompanied this group of devotees. Now, Shivananda Sen realizing or understanding and having this compassion not for just human beings but for all living entity, looked after the dog also in the same fashion as he would look after any other human being. And what happened in the process? The dog reached Jagannath Puri. He also got the association of Mahaprabhu. In fact, he was so fortunate that he got the remnants of Mahaprabhu's prasad. And from here we learn two lessons. One is the importance of having prasad. Prasad is very, very, very potent. What you have offered to the Lord, and when you have that, that has got so much potency that it can do miracles. And that's exactly what happened. This dog eventually was not seen in the group of devotees because he had moved on. He had gone to the higher planets just because he had prasad. So two lessons that we learn from Shivananda Sen's story is that we need to be compassionate towards all living entities. It's easy to be compassionate towards human beings, but to be able to see the presence of the Lord in every living entity is what we need to learn. And so when we are doing our seva, can we expand our circle of compassion not just to human beings but to all living entity? That is an austerity. That's an austerity to be able to view everybody as part and parcel of Krishna. And that comes with practice. Okay. So this is what we learned from here. And then we will just, so these are all, of course, from the scriptures. So then one may feel that, oh, but these are great exalted devotees and they're associates of Mahaprabhu, so they could do all these things. But we are just, insignificant human beings. Then we can take lessons from Srila Prabhupada, right? Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, not just Srila Prabhupada. Of course, everybody knows about Srila Prabhupada's journey to America. He was 69 years old. He was quite okay. He was comfortable. He was in Vrindavan, in the most holiest of all places. Why would anybody in their right mind leave Vrindavan? And what did Srila Prabhupada do? At that age, he left Vrindavan. You know, and the only purpose he left Vrindavan and came to the West was he had the order of his Guru Maharaj. He also says, when you read his Lilamrit, he says, I had no qualification. But what I carried with me is my Guru Maharaj's order, and I carried the Bhagavatam with me and the holy name. That's all that I had, right? That's what Prabhupada says. So Prabhupada has taken this very difficult journey at a ripe old age of 69, when most people are thinking of Anand Kumar Prabhu was talking to somebody yesterday and he said, I'm 56, in another 4 years I'm thinking of retiring. And here Prabhupada at 69, he's thinking, okay, let me go and change the world, right? So that's the difference between us and, of course, great devotees like Prabhupada. He built ISKCON from absolutely nothing. He had nothing when he came to the US, right? We all know that. I mean, if you haven't read Prabhupada's Leelamrit, then please do read it. But yeah, he had absolutely nothing. There were so many incidents that happened when he was in America where perhaps any other person would think that, these are signs that are telling me I shouldn't be here, right? Right from the time when he landed and the house that he was living in, and he had to share this place with, he had to share the fridge where, there were things which obviously we wouldn't want to see. But what did Prabhupada do? He just focused on the goal that he had come for, and that was to spread the holy name. And no matter what obstacle came on his path, he just went on. He just went on doing his activities, right? Now, Prabhupada performed severe austerities. He's not asking us to do that. He knows we are not capable of all these austerities that he performed. He has only given us very, very simple tapasya. And what is that? You rise early in the morning, you follow the regulative principles, you chant 16 rounds, worship, eat prasad, right? So these are just very simple austerities compared to what Prabhupada has gone through. We have been given actually the very, simple rules and regulations to follow, right? And somehow or the other, even those we want to make excuses. We are not able to follow even those, you know. But we must learn from these examples of Srila Prabhupada, what he's done, and just some of his disciples that we will talk about. You can change the slide, Bacha. So of course this is Prabhupada's journey, but some not just Prabhupada. Then of course then again we may have this excuse, because I'll tell you one thing: the conditioned mind can make excuses upon excuses. I'll tell you that. When you don't want to do something, it can make 10,000 excuses. So then we'll say, oh, but Prabhupada was such an exalted soul. Okay, agreed. What about his devotees? The devotees, the disciples that he met in the US had never even heard who is Krishna. Right? They didn't know who is Krishna. What is vegetarianism? What is prasad? How do you offer bhoga? What is arti? They didn't know anything, right? But because they had the desire to please Prabhupada, they didn't know Krishna. Their desire was not to please Krishna. Their desire was to please Prabhupada. How will we please Prabhupada? By following his instructions. They were so surrendered to Prabhupada that it says in the Leelamrit that Prabhupada would sit on his table with all his disciples, and they were planning how we'll spread Krishna consciousness. And he had the globe on his table, right? And he would actually just turn the globe like that and point to a particular country. And he would say, okay, you and you go to this country and start preaching. Now you tell me, all of us, if and that is why spiritual masters will not give us those instructions. But if they do, oh my God, I have my home, my children, they are in the school, I have a job, I have this. We don't have that kind of surrender. I am not saying that we have to be also practical, but these devotees, because they had that kind of surrender, there was miracles that was happening in those days. Miracles. We know of the 6 devotees that he sent to London, correct? He asked these 6 devotees to go to London and preach there and set up an ISKCON center. So there were 6 couples and there was a little child, right? Saraswati, her name was. Perhaps many of you know the 6 couples also? No? Yeah? Shyamasundar and Jadurani, Malati and and then Gurudas and Mukunda and Janaki. And then we had little Saraswati, right? So we had these 6 couples with this little baby. You won't believe they didn't have enough money to cross over. They were in one part of Europe. They wanted to come to London. They didn't have enough money that all 6 could come together. So one couple came, then they managed to send some money for the other couple. Then another came. Then they managed to send, then the other came, like that. When they came to London, they didn't have a place to stay, obviously, And with this little child, in the winters, perhaps now the winters have become much milder than what they used to be more than 50 years back. Every place these days has heating and all of that. In those days, all the houses were not with central heating. Washrooms used to not be in the house. I wasn't aware of that. Somebody was telling me, washrooms were not in the house. They had to go out. Now these 6 devotees lived in complete poverty. They went through so many difficulties. Sometimes they survived on just some baked potatoes, with salt. Sometimes they were fortunate to meet some pious Indian people who would perhaps take a little bit of mercy on them and call them over for prasad or whatever else. So most of the times they didn't have anything at all. However, their focus was just service. And so even though there was so much scarcity, they didn't feel anything, because they were so focused on how to please Prabhupada. He had given them a mission. He had said, you need to go and establish ISKCON in London. That was their goal. And the only thought constantly was, how can I do that? How can I do that? You know, sometimes we may think that the goal looks really far and unachievable. It may be the case, but what one can do is set short-term goals for it. Okay, that particular goal looks really far, maybe 17th floor, I might not be able to climb today because I'm not fit. But if I start working and practicing, so let me start, climbing 4 floors for 1 week and, get stamina. And then perhaps next week I can add 2 more floors to it, 6 floors, and then 8 floors. And so what you're doing is you're setting short-term goals. This is not something that we use only in our spiritual life. Wherever we are, whatever we are doing, we have to have a long-term goal, but in order to reach that long-term goal, we need to set short-term goals and work towards it. Because when you look at the long-term goal, sometimes it may look so daunting that the human mind starts working in that way and says, okay, I can't do this, so I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to reach anywhere. I'm not going to reach the goal anyway, so why should I do it? And that is why it is important to set short-term goals. So these 6 devotees, they didn't know what's going to happen. They had faith in Prabhupada's words, right? And they worked hard towards it. And look at what they have done. If it was not for these 6 devotees, we wouldn't be here. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are getting the opportunity to accept Krishna consciousness, to know Srila Prabhupada, to know who Krishna is, to be able to serve Krishna. It is thanks to these 6 devotees, it is thanks to Prabhupada's vision. Prabhupada knew we can do it, and that's why he sent these devotees. Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. Of course, we have so many such stories. We could go on and on about the stories, but I'll keep it brief. The main thing that we need to learn from all of these stories. Now, I'll tell you, even Sankirtan. We think about Sankirtan devotees performing, going on the streets doing kirtan. Imagine the weather, what it is. Even today, when we have our December marathon and when devotees are going door to door, uh, perhaps many of you may have done that. I've done it a couple of times, not as many times as I would like to, but I have done it a couple of times. And it is cold, it's freezing. You don't know how, when somebody opens the door, what they may say to you. More so now when there is so much racism everywhere, you're just worried, how they may react. But nothing stopped these devotees from doing what Prabhupada asked them. Book distribution those days was one of the most important services, and they went out of their way to do it. They did not look for comfort. They did not think, I'm tired. They did not think, who will say what, I'm cold, my hands are freezing. Nothing of that sort. They just, went and did this service with complete sincerity. And you will see what they got also in return. Krishna reciprocates. He also gives back. He sees what you're doing and he reciprocates. So if you want something, nothing comes for free in this world. Nothing at all comes for free. So, you give something, then you get something. Krishna will reciprocate like that, right? Next slide, Bacha. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is this verse 17.5, and I'll just read the English. It says, those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, are to be known as demons. So, moving on from why you're performing austerity, so why you must not perform austerity. Austerity without seva can make us proud, right? If you are performing austerity, and it has happened with devotees, some of the devotees, when they start doing Nirjala Ekadashi, not just once a year, but let's say every Ekadashi, what happens is invariably they tend to talk about it and brag about it. Oh, are you doing Ekadashi, Prabhu? And Prabhu will say, yes. Oh, but I just saw you having fruits. Oh, so are you not doing Nirjala? Ah, I see, I'm doing Nirjala. I'm not even having water, you know. And it's true. His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj said, austerity should be performed so that it softens our heart, melts our heart, not to make us stone-hearted. Not to make us stone-hearted. So it is very important that you balance the austerities. Don't start becoming, don't become a false renunciate. Don't become a falgu vairagya, that I'm not attached to anything, not to my family, not to comforts. I can do this and I can perform this severe austerities. It is not helping you, my friends. It is only making your heart hard-hearted, because it is giving pride to you. You're becoming proud of your austerities. So anything that you do for Krishna, please be very, very aware of your consciousness for doing it. Are you doing it because you want to serve Krishna, because you want to please Krishna, or are you doing it because it is giving you either some name, fame, pride, recognition? What is it? What is it? So it is so important that, that's what Prabhupada says, that Krishna consciousness is simple for the simple and very complicated for the complicated, because sometimes we may not be performing Krishna consciousness or performing our devotional services just to please Krishna, but we do it for many, many other reasons. And thus, it is very important that you ask yourself this question: why am I doing this service? Because when you take on a service and you take it on for the right mood, right reasons, then Krishna from within will help you, guide you to develop sincerity, to develop determination. At the manor, we have got some devotees who've been doing a particular service for decades, not for years, for decades. How were they able to sustain it? Because they have taken themselves out of the equation. They are not in the equation at all. It's their service and Krishna. That's it. When you take yourself out of the equation and you start doing it just for the pleasure of Krishna, Krishna will help you from within. He is in all of us. He's within all of us, right? So he will help us from within, and from around, of course, we have got devotee association, and that's so, so important that you perform your services in association of devotees. If you want to protect yourself from pride entering your heart, then it is very important that you perform services in association of devotees. Practical example: what you read, study, hear, you only realize when you do service in association of devotees. Otherwise, there is no realization. I realized this when I was doing services during COVID. We didn't have much opportunity because the temple was closed. And some of us were fortunate that we were allowed to come to the manor and do service. And we interacted with many different kinds of devotees, and there were many difficulties performing those services. But it's at that time you realize, things that you've actually read or heard, you realize the potency of devotional service. That is why Prabhupada called it devotional service, not just any service. Your mood has to be devotional, right? So anyways, lots of lessons we learned, but some practical applications for perhaps all of us. We all should remember that our daily sadhana that has been given to us by Prabhupada is extremely important. Sometimes we may have to personally undergo some austerities to perform all those activities or sadhanas. Like, let's say that, many of us are working, sometimes work pressures these days. I know I'm hearing some devotees, they're working with US time, so then they are staying up till late night. So then waking up in the morning, of course, is very difficult. Yes, we may have those days, but we still should try that we are trying to chant attentively because that is very, very important. Each one of us should engage in menial service. When we say menial service, cleaning floors, washing pots, distributing prasad, because what happens if you don't start from the bottom and you straight away go to the top services, you become proud. You become proud, and that is why you have to start from the bottom. You start with menial services, you actually start relishing anyways because service is for Krishna. It doesn't matter what it is. Um, Change your attitude. If there is any inconvenience when you're doing services, think of it as opportunities to show love for Krishna by showing love for the devotees that you're doing service with. Let's say if the inconvenience is because of the service itself, or it is because of the devotees who are involved, or whatever it is, think about it, meditate on it, and think, can I tolerate this so that I can show my love for Krishna by showing love to the devotees, right? Prabhupada says, even a little austerity in Krishna's service is eternal gain. Krishna never forgets anything that you've done for him, right? So, the conclusion is that seva in the mood of austerity is actually the essence of bhakti. You know, when you are performing service with all the comforts that you have, sometimes it doesn't even feel like you're doing anything. It's like, okay, what am I doing? And that is why sometimes, they say, that you have to go beyond your comfort zone in order to actually feel the essence, right? Um, Obviously, we've seen examples of Mahaprabhu's associates lived this principle. They lived with this principle. Prabhupada embodied that for us. Prabhupada performed so many austerities just so that he could give us the holy name, right? So now I think it is our turn. It's our turn now. What can we do? What do we want to do? Where do we want to go? Where are we seeing our life? What is our goal? What do I want to achieve? And to achieve that, what do I need to do? Each one of us can ask ourselves these questions and then make that shift in our attitude. How can I make that little shift in my attitude so that then I can perform service in that mood, right? So I'll just conclude by just saying one thing, and that is that in this age of Kali, we are fortunate, we've been given this opportunity to chant the Lord's name. Chanting the Lord's name is the greatest benediction that has been given to us. For that, if we need to perform some austerities, doesn't matter. Don't ever think that, it's okay if I don't chant today. It's not okay. It's not okay if you don't eat. Prabhupada said, you never forget to eat, do you? Then why do you forget to chant? Right? We never forget to eat. We want our 3 meals a day, right? So chant. If you are not chanting 16 rounds, please start chanting 16 rounds. It's not difficult at all. Prabhupada also gave us the easy way. 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, 4 in the evening, 4 before you go to sleep. 16 rounds done. That's what he said. That's what he used to say. If you find difficult to chant all 16 rounds together. He said, okay, 4 in the morning. And Prabhupada also said, of course, it is an austerity. Maybe not everybody can do it. He said, don't eat. Don't have your breakfast till you've chanted your 4 rounds. So if you give yourself such goals, okay, let me do this. Very soon you will see that you will be chanting 16 rounds easily. Easily. All of us can do it. All of us. We are all part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna has given all of us this power that we can do it. If we want to go to Krishna, if we want, that is our goal, that I want to get out of this material world, then we have to perform austerities. Okay, so I will conclude here now. Thank you very much for your attention and listening to me. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare
If
Krishna.
there are any questions or